This is a carburetor problem that I'm going to go over with all my students here, and I'll show you how I figure out what's wrong with these little bikes. Half of the thing is knowing what the bike is, knowing the symptoms, whatever it shows you. Now, this bike hasn't been ridden for 3 years. So at that time, a lot of times, the gas in the carburetor down here, okay, it evaporates right in the float bowl. That's your float bowl right there. It evaporates, it turns into this, it looks like pancake syrup, maple syrup, molasses, and it gets stuck in either the main jet or the idle jet, which are just little tiny pieces of brass with little fine holes in them. Each one has a hole in it. Now this bike is also equipped with an electric choke, which is right here. And what the electric choke does is when you turn the bike on, it opens up a little tiny bypass passage in the carburetor and lets a little bit of gas in so your bike can idle. Okay? When the bike gets so warm, after a couple of minutes, the choke shuts itself and the carburetor takes over. The symptoms of this are, I've checked everything, the bike has it's not idling correctly. Now these bikes should idle all day long if their idle jets are working. They shouldn't work and then slowly stop. That can be 100 different things. This one, it idles for maybe 2 minutes and then it just slowly stops. That tells me a couple things. Either, since it's been sitting so long, that the idle jet down here or the main jet has got some syrup or clog in it, old gas, or there's a blockage somewhere. And to fix that, I'm going to have to take the carb off. The problem with taking this carb off is it looks easy, it's not. It's got 2 bolts right here. There's a little bolt right here. Where is it? It's right. Anyway. Shoot. It's right there. Now there's a little tiny nut on the other side of the carb right here, okay? The problem is the shock is in the way of that nut. So is the wheel. So is the tire. And it's going to be almost impossible to get it off unless I tear a lot of things down. So what I did was I went on the internet and I asked the guy who knows about these. He said what you do is you jack the bike up and take the spring off. And if you take the spring off, the tire drops down and then I can go in and get that nut off. So you ask, well, why is it so hard to take these carbs off? Most carbs have a rubber boot right here, between the carb and the intake. And they have a clamp on them like this. You take the clamp off and you pull the carb out. This one is bolted in. That's why it's going to be so hard. Now before you do this, if you think it's going to be a carb problem, use your phone, use your pictures, videos, to see what you've taken apart and how you've taken it apart. With this, what I need to do is take off this throttle linkage right here, which are these 2 nuts. One will go up and the other will go down. And so I can pull it out of this little tiny gap right here. The trick is to put it back all together the way it was as far as the tension. What we're looking at is the tension here. It has 2 little yellow marks that were put on by the factory. What I'm going to do is take this top nut, I'm going to roll it back to the very top of the stem here. I'm going to count how many turns it took me to go from right here to right there. And then when I take this apart, I'm just going to reverse it and roll the nut down so many. You don't have to take the top one or the bottom one off or loosen it. Then what you have to do is what I do is I take a set of needle nose pliers and I pinch the gas off right here. You use this is a little tiny valve on the bottom of the float bowl, which is right here, to empty the gas out. So you pinch the gas off, empty the gas out, and you slowly start taking things apart. This air filter unit will have to come off. It's not that hard. I believe it will. And then this air filter boot is going to have to come off. And the first thing I'm going to do is take a large piece of wood, okay? Flat wood, maybe 2-3 inches tall. I'm going to put it underneath the stand right here, okay? So it's going to lift the back tire up farther. And then I will take off the top nut to the spring. And if I can get the spring to fall down and move out of the way enough, then I can get in a 10mm wrench to get at this little tiny nut in here on the other side. So what I'm thinking is, since the bike is working and it stops, the idle jet is clogged, I think. Now let's go over carburation for a minute. That's going to be on the next one. I learned all this with books. Okay, I didn't go to school. My dad wasn't an F1 race driver at the Isle of Wight or anything like that. I just learned it by books. So, all right, let's talk about carburetors. It's real easy for anyone to do. If you don't have a big brother or dad or, you know, just someone to show you. And I'm an old man in my 60s, so let me show you my method of doing this before I take this off.